But in that moment, I have never felt so, I guess, useless is the word. I brought this baby into the world and I cannot even feed her. And I remember knowing that, breastfeeding is something that I really wanted to do. And now it's not happening. So how do we access that? How do we fix this? And I'm a fixer. If there's always a problem, let's find a solution. Let's do this.
Balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Episode number 198. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I thought I would start off today's show by thanking all the fabulous supporters of the All About Breastfeeding show. Every single email, Facebook post, and iTunes review just makes me feel really good about the work I'm doing. I appreciate you taking the time to let me know how you feel about the show, as every single one is like getting a pat on the back saying, "You're doing a great job." Yeah, I know, some people might think this is conceited. My husband, who edits the show, I know that he's going to have a laugh with this, but come on. I'm always real with you. Who doesn't like a pat on the back? When was the last time someone patted you on the back for doing a good job? A boss walked past your desk and instead of just saying, "Hi, good morning," if once in a while they said, "You did a really great job last week. Thank you so much." We all know we like it, and I'm not any different. So thank you for that. I wanted to share with you some iTunes reviews I've received. And I wanted to start off with Dr. Ellie, who's a naturopathic doctor. And she said, she gave me a 5-star review and said that the podcast is very useful information. "This show is so needed," she said. "As a natural healthcare provider, my patients often seek more support on this topic. It is so great that Lori has created this podcast to really help moms and others learn about breastfeeding and all aspects related to parenthood. Highly recommend the show. Can't wait to share it with my patients." Thank you, Dr. Ellie, so much. This sure is high praise from a naturopathic doctor, of which I'm a fan of. My family and I have been using naturopathic doctors for years, well before it was more mainstream, should I say. Here in Arizona, we have a wonderful network of naturopathic physicians, and I refer to family-friendly practices all the time, and I just love how well they take care of the whole family. So thank you, Dr. Ellie. I'm not sure who Hoagie is, but Hoagie said the show is fabulous. She also gave another fabulous 5-star review. Thank you. She said, "I'm a birth and postpartum doula wanting to learn everything about pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. This podcast has opened my eyes to so many aspects of the breastfeeding world that I recommend it to everyone I meet that shows even a speck of interest. Lori opens up about so many topics that either she's been involved in personally or has guests on that have that experience. You'll really find this as one of the best resources you can have in your back pocket." Another listener gives another 5-star review. Yahoo! She says that the show is so informative and funny. She says, "Thank you, Lori, for all your hard work." I really like when people say that they share the show. I've actually had midwives, OBs, doulas, and many other people talk about how they've shared this show. I've had other IBCLC say that they've given this show info to their students and say that it's a must listen. So I really appreciate that. And I would love for you to make this show easier for others to find, to boost our ratings in iTunes, to make me feel good with a lovely review. enlighten me about subjects you want me to address on the show, you can certainly put that in your review. You can do all of this by leaving a review in iTunes. I wanted to give you a very, very quick little primer for those that are not sure how to go about doing so, because I also tell people, oh, I would if I knew how to do it. And I just take their phone and show them. So this is how to leave an iTunes rating and review for a podcast from your iPhone. So what you want to do is launch your Apple's podcast app or whatever app you have. You want to tap the search button, enter the name All About Breastfeeding, tap the blue search key at the bottom right when that screen comes up, and then tap the album art, the square with the picture of All About Breastfeeding. So tap that, and then you'll see at the top, you can tap a reviews tab, and then you just go ahead and leave a review. On today's show, you are going to meet a fellow IBCLC of mine. I often meet my guests, some of them in pretty interesting ways, and Christine Shepard was no different. I was a speaker at this year's Gold Online Conference, which is an online conference for IBCLCs and students. My presentation was titled, "The Original Foster Mothers Were Wet Nurses." As a speaker, I participated in fun prizes for the delegates who attended. My gift was for the winner to be a guest on this show. And guess who won? Yes, Christine Shepard, IBCLC, mother of two, and owner of her lactation business named Latchy Moms. I am pleased to present to you another enjoyable show where you will feel almost like you're just sitting across the table from a few friends who are sharing stories about breastfeeding. If you want to listen to a little intro to the presentation that I did, on the show notes, I'll have a copy of the link to YouTube's where I am interviewed by Fiona about the presentation that I gave. For right now, let's get on with the show. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding. And today I'm going to introduce my guest. I'd like to introduce Christine to the show. She was born and raised in South Africa, and it was there that she obtained her degree in dietetics and honed her skills providing breastfeeding education to rural communities. She met her husband during her graduate year, and together they moved to Portland, Oregon, with him in about 2004, and she started working for WIC that same year. In January this year, right, she moved to Ashland, Oregon, where she's now started her private practice, hooray, after almost 14 years in the public health sector. She gave birth to her daughter in 2008, and breastfeeding difficulties renewed her interest in pursuing a more breastfeeding-centric career. She certified as an IBCLC in 2011, and she just recertified last year. She now owns and operates her own private practice in Ashland, Oregon. Christine, I would love to welcome you to the All About Breastfeeding show. How are you today?
Thanks, Lori. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really interested to hear about the private practice, and we'll get into all that. I really like for my guests to have a little bit of insight as to who it is they're listening to and a little bit of your background. And being born in South Africa and raised there, I'd love to hear a little bit about your family life when you were a young girl and what your aspirations were.
Oh my goodness. It's kind of crazy. It was outside a lot, which is very different to, having kids over here. I feel like we're monitored a whole bunch outside with the kids. And so that's why we made this big move to come down here. And I don't think I've seen my kids for most of the day this summer. They've been outside tearing around. So yeah, just in general, like life was insane. It was intense. It was great. It was very stressful just for the nature of where it was, I feel like. But yeah, I grew up with a sister and a brother, and my mom did not breastfeed us, which was surprising to me. I thought that we had breastfed till I found that picture. So,
of you drinking a bottle?
Oh, a big bottle, about 8 ounces. That was interesting.
That was the other thing that was interesting when I started to take a look back. The bottles were like long, tall, they were glass bottles, which was good, with these really very, very thick rubber nipples, but they were like huge, like 8 to 9 ounces we were drinking.
Massive.
At the same time, I also learned that frequently we were only fed every 4 to 6 hours too.
Right.
So we got used to drinking very large volumes and going a long time in between, being, I'm sure, pushed to sleep for longer periods of time. But I guess having all that heavy formula in our bellies helped with that.
I know. Yeah. I wonder if that helped program kind of how we are today as adults too. My husband always looks at me and he goes, "Where are you putting all of that?" And I'm all of 5'2" and he's 6'2", and I eat more than he does at meals. And I will only eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm not a big snacker, and I like my sleep. So I wonder if that had anything to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think it definitely does, but I also think that genetics play a strong part in our adult life and our overall health. Because we know that breastfeeding is the norm. It's species specific, and that's really, it's the milk and the nutrition, vitamins and minerals and proteins and everything that's meant for our human babiys. And because we feel so strongly about it, I feel like we've kind of gone a little haywire in saying breast is best. It's the only food you should feed your baby, or making people feel guilty about, if they don't, and all of the science and the news that we hear about how healthy it is for babies and reduction in cancer and many other health issues, which we do know is true. There are facts. However, it also seems to give this connotation for moms who want to breastfeed and are unable to provide a full supply, the guilt factor, because now their babies won't be healthy or they won't be able to help them reduce the risk of various cancers and ear infections and everything. And I try and tell moms, we want you to breastfeed. We want to help you breastfeed because that's what you want. And we'd like for our human babies to get our human milk because it's species specific, but no one should feel guilty if they don't want to, or if they are unable to, because just because we breastfeed our babies does not mean we're going to have 100% healthy babies who will never succumb to any illness. We know that it puts them at a greater advantage, but it's still, there's no guarantee.
No, not at all. I feel like with my daughter, where she was exclusively breastfed for quite a while, but she had more than 10 or 11 ear infections in her first year. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office, sobbing my eyes out. "I'm doing it all like they said. What's happening?" And she goes, "It's congenital. Her ear tubes are just angled the wrong way. It's got nothing to do with you." So, but I get it. I get those feelings. There are strong feelings.
Yeah. And I do feel that, when we're breastfeeding our babies is that, when they do get sick, that it, probably could have been worse if they weren't breastfed or they would have had a longer illness. And but the most important point I want to get across is we want moms to really want to breastfeed because it's the milk that our babies is supposed to get. And I don't think either one of us wants to make any mom feel guilty.
No, not at all. Every ounce counts.
Every ounce counts. Yeah. Great. That would be a great mem. I think I'm going to do that. So tell me a little bit about your adult life. I always kid and say that most of us IBCLCs typically aren't young girls or teenagers or young women in our early 20s saying, when I grow up, I want to be an IBCLC. Right? It kind of just sort of happens, and it's an interesting path for all of us. But tell me a little bit about your life, what you did before you became an IBCLC.
I had great aspirations of being a doctor or a veterinarian, and then decided not to. I went down the road and was majoring in zoology and genetics for a long time, and then decided, I need to be with people. This lab business is not quite up my alley. And I met my best friend who was studying dietetics at the time. And I thought, yes, that's what I want to do. And as I started studying that, breastfeeding was a huge part of that because it's a food, and that's what we start right in the beginning. And so I did dietetics for a long time, finished my schooling for that, and then graduated and came out and I went, oh, now what? Now I'm moving to the United States, and they want me to go back to school and redo my internship. And I kind of sighed and was like, I don't know anybody who wants to redo an internship for a whole year. That's not fun. And then I found WIC. And so I could totally access the nutrition part of my brain, plus get the public health piece that I really wanted and the people connection. And I just stayed there for 14 years and loved it. Absolutely loved it. They helped me become that IBCLC. They helped with that path. So it was really nice.
Were there lactation consultants in the WIC office that you were in?
Not when I first began, but a couple, so I want to say in 2008, when my daughter was about to be delivered, one of the gals in my office became an IBCLC. And so the more I would interact with her, the more I really started to love how complex and complicated everything could be, trying to fit that puzzle piece, trying to find all those answers. And it was a challenge. It's great. I love it. I like knowing the bigger picture of what's happening in moms' lives to help them have that aha moment, when we go, oh, look, that's really what's going on. It's not anything over here. It's something else. So, and then being in that public health sector, I got another job at WIC down here in Jackson County, and they had some funding cuts. And because I was the last hire, I was the first bump. So I was like, dang it. So I lost all my tenure. I'd been mulling private practice for a long time. And I think this was the universe's way of telling me, oh, now's the time, do it. So I've decided to take the plunge.
Well, excellent. Thanks for that little bit of history. It helps us to get to know you a little bit better. And now we're going to kind of go backwards a little bit in time, because what I really want to hear is your breastfeeding story. So I know you have 2 kids, right?
Yes.
So let's start with you first and tell us a little bit about what I'm interested to know is, at that point, you were already involved with women and breastfeeding and nutrition and breastfeeding. What I'd like to know is, during your pregnancy, is there anything specific that you did other than what you already knew to prepare for breastfeeding?
I like to think of myself as a 28-year-old arrogant mama at that point, a potential mom who, I've studied breastfeeding. I talk about breastfeeding all the time. I know all the answers and I know where to go if I need help. And it didn't turn out that way. One of my friends actually gifted me 2 consultations with a lactation consultant, private in-home.
Nice.
And I kind of looked at her and I said, you know what? I was like, this is a great gift, but I don't know if I'm going to use it. And I'm so scared that you've spent all this money. And I have all these friends who are breastfeeding educators. I'm a breastfeeding educator. Well, at 2 weeks postpartum, Doris was on the line. I was like, what am I doing? Then, I had a spunky little kiddo, but I totally believe, now that I know more about the birthing traumas and birthing process and how the soul kind of manifests. And I also had that idea of, hey, my mom didn't breastfeed. She told me she couldn't. So I don't know, maybe, but I'm kind of a little type A. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. So there was a lot of motivation on my end too.
So you had struggles, but you just kept going because you're type A, stubborn. Your mom didn't. You wanted to show that you could.
It was that, but that makes it sound like I was being so spiteful towards her too.
No. No, I think a lot of us are like that, because if our mothers don't really understand, and they want us to, if they see us suffering out of love, they're telling us, you are okay. Why can't you just give your baby a bottle of formula? You are okay. And I think that's the part about, the stubbornness, is like, their generation thinks that we're all okay. And we look at the whole laundry list of diseases, right? Well, no, I'm not okay. And we're really not okay. When we know better, we do better. And so now you want to do better. So it's not, it's not like just because they're saying no, but it is one of the factors. If you're type A, if you're stubborn, if they're saying you can't, those reasons just pile up to say, I'm suffering here. It's killing me, whatever your challenges are, but I'm going to work like the dickens to try and figure this out.
Yeah. I tell my clients that all the time. I was like, it's your breastfeeding efficacy, and it's up to you to make that choice. There's only so much I can do with your motivation. And so I did. I worked really hard, and I'm really one of the lucky ones, I think. My husband was amazing in supporting me in those moments. So
Tell me what happened right after. Did you give birth in a hospital?
I did.
What happened with breastfeeding in the first day or two? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think that was seared into my mind. Like, I'm sure most moms have, well, I assume most moms remember kind of what's going on. Yeah, Hayden, it started with her birth. It was traumatic for her. She got stuck. And so it then became a C-section where we had to kind of pull her out, kind of. And it was pretty rough on her. And we were trying. And so she came and she would latch a couple times. And then the nurse came in the one day and got really frustrated because she couldn't sign off that Hayden had had a good breastfeeding experience. So she couldn't discharge us until this happened. I was actually in a breastfeeding friendly hospital, mind you. And she came over and grabbed my shoulder and grabbed Hayden's head, which was swollen beyond, and just kind of, as Hayden cried out in pain, she just rammed the two of us together. And I just remember going, what is happening? I was still kind of coming off of all the drugs that I'd had. And so
and your head is here, and all this is happening like right here, baby breast, right?
Oh, yeah. It was
in a very personal space.
Very personal space, and very violated at that moment. Feeling like, what are you doing to my baby? Why are you making her cry so much? And this is not working. And then from that moment, Hayden refused to go into the prone position to nurse at all. The kiddo, every time she would lay down, even if it was to sleep, would lose her mind. So we were then struggling with sleep and nursing and trying to pump, and nobody ever, they go, here's a big pump for you, just start pumping. And I feel like when you're in those early moments, regardless of how much training you've had before or knowledge that you have, you're in this primal phase with your baby in the moment. You're not remembering or accessing any of your knowledge. And so they give me this pump and I'm having to pump and I'm freaking out because there's no milk. And I'm like, what is happening? And now in hindsight, I'm like, oh dear, you were trying to pump on the first day. Your milk probably wasn't in because you had a C-section and all this other nonsense.
Well, hindsight is great when we're feeling a little better, right?
Right. But in that moment, I have never felt so, I guess, useless is the word. I've brought this baby into the world and I cannot even feed her. And I remember knowing that, breastfeeding is something that I really wanted to do. And now it's not happening. So how do we access that? How do we fix this? And I'm a fixer. If there's always a problem, let's find a solution. Let's do this, And poor dad is sitting there, and we've only just started talking about it. And my daughter turns 9 in 2 weeks. Wow. We've only just started talking where we can talk about kind of what went down.
And I actually get into the discussion quite frequently about birth trauma. And how people don't even recognize that that's what occurred to them. And frequently it's many, many years before they even start talking about it, allowing themselves to talk about it, perhaps talk about it, the person who they went through, and making the connections between that trauma and things that unfolded in the days and weeks and even years following. And I also just want to remind everybody that you're a mom who is not just sitting in a chair trying to breastfeed a baby. You're a mom who's been through a pregnancy, a very difficult labor, and now you've had major abdominal surgery, a cesarean section,
oh my gosh,
and there's pain medication. You probably can't sit up well, lay down well. Your brain may be a little fuzzy because you're taking some pain medication and you probably don't want to take it, but you're taking it anyway. Like, we are now sitting here thinking very logically about all this, right?
right. Yeah, but logic doesn't play right there.
No, because there's emotional trauma, there's physical trauma, there's a lot going on. And like you said, which I love that you point this out, that you can have all the experience in the world and helped other people, but at this moment, you are just a new mother in that primal state, coming off of major trauma. So when we think about everything that how our birth, where we give birth and how we give birth, and how all that impacts with our breastfeeding, I really think it's interesting for people to just sit and take a step back and really think about what you're telling us about the place that you're coming from when you're trying to breastfeed a baby that's very, very hungry and it's very frustrating. And interestingly enough, you're saying that you're coming from a baby friendly hospital, and yet you realize that it was not so friendly the way you, your baby, or your breasts were treated, and how that impacted you. And also about giving a pump, I think that there's a lot to be learned about moms hand expressing or pumping in the first few days. If it's not explained to you, and again, here you are, someone with experience, and you are just like, your head is probably squinting like, what the hey is happening here? It's like hard to coordinate everything. And your husband, the interesting thing also is that the guys or your partners, is that here's the thing, is that you might even have all your knowledge, but they really don't. We're assuming we know all this. We got it, right? But if it's not going and we don't have our wits about us, then, we're looking at our partners and they're like, I don't know anything about this breast pump. I don't know how frequently you're supposed to pump. I don't know how to set the whole thing up. Right. And also, interestingly enough, piggybacking on that, it really only takes a hospital staff person maybe 10 minutes to sit and show you.
Right.
And I cannot tell you how many women I interview who tell me that that has not been done for them. I would love for anybody who's working with moms in a capacity on the maternity floor to recognize how important it is that we're shown how to hand express or pump. Just take 10 or 15 minutes with us and just show us, and we'll be good. Right. But don't show us at all, and it could be several days of trying to figure it out.
Right. Yeah, that's all I needed was those 5 minutes, right? Just come in, here's this pump. And I'd worked with several pumps. I had no idea what this thing was. It came in on wheels. It had a pendulum swinging in this clear lid. I was like, what did you bring me? I don't even know what this is.
I know. I would say it's like someone bringing me a stick shift. Like, I have no idea how to work this car. I've driven for 20 years, but I've never driven a stick shift. So I don't know what to do here.
Right. And just little snippets. We don't have to go in for a whole hour and trying to teach everything. Just at those moments, like these little teachable moments. Oh, here's your pump. Let me show you how to use it. That will stick with that mom forever.
Yeah. Like you said, little snippets. So tell me, by the time you left the hospital, what was your feeding plan or routine?
Well, there were several syringes involved. There was already formula involved at that point because she wasn't eating. I wasn't able to pump anything I had a really long labor. So I was already in the hospital for 3 days prior. And they had given me morphine to sleep. And so I had that. And then I had a delayed epidural and all that other nonsense that kind of comes with that. And then the medications from the surgery. So my milk only came, well, I hate to say come in, but you know what I mean.
I know.
The milk kind of let down, for lack of a better word, about a week in. So we were trying to finger feed and syringe feed, and I was trying to pump at home, feeling very engorged because of all the edema and swelling that was kind of happening. And, so we were doing that. And then there was lots of tears because now I'm formula feeding and it's the first week. And like I said, I'm a big failure to my baby at that point because I had bigger goals in life.
Taking a little break from the show for just a minute or two, I wanted to remind everybody about the free Facebook group. All you need to do is punch in All About Breastfeeding Community, those 4 words, and it'll bring up the group and you can join. It's a really nice group of moms who all get to talk about breastfeeding and issues related to it. It's a very nice group. It's a safe group, and you can meet and connect with others literally all around the world. So check out the Facebook group. Also, if you go to allaboutmothering.com, there you will find a bunch of free resources that I love to share. Under the top navigation bar, you'll see a link. It says resources, and it'll bring you to quite a few handouts on things related to getting started with breastfeeding and a whole series on going back to work. There's information on weaning, and all that's free. And then you will also see another link to podcasts. And what I've done with some of the podcasts is I've bundled them together to make it nice and easy for you to listen to shows that are like other shows. So there's one series that I've done. It's for people who are just getting started with breastfeeding. But the first thing I start off with is who are IBCLCs and what are we all about? But then there are other podcasts that literally bring you from the beginning, how the breast makes milk. What is colostrum and why do our babies need it and what does it mean for the early days of feeding? There's a show on tips on latching, the very, very early first few days of breastfeeding. Another show on like day 5 to 15 of breastfeeding. There's shows on engorgement and many other things related to the very early days of breastfeeding. So I batched a bunch of those shows together. Again, all for free. Then if you go on allaboutmothering.com and look around a little further, you will find information about some of the paid groups that I'm facilitating. One is a group for breastfeeding mothers. We get together once a week, and every group is different. We could be women from just the United States, women from the United States and other countries. It just depends on how it all works out. We meet once a week, and you really get to meet, network, and make friends with other moms, and we get to talk about breastfeeding and a lot of other stuff around early newborn mothering. And my last two groups are one for students who are studying to become a lactation consultant. You get to meet and connect and learn, and it's facilitated by me. So there's lots of education that go on in that group. And the other one is for IBCLCs. If you have a private practice and are looking to build it, and you are looking to start a private practice, you will definitely want to join one of these groups so you can meet and connect and network and learn a lot from me and the other ladies in the group who will all be talking about their private practice. Often people feel like they're all alone when they're doing that. So my mantra with that is you don't need to be alone. Come and join a group. All right, let's get back to the show.
And then when that lactation consultant came in, she goes, "Oh, honey, you just calm yourself down." She was like, "We're going to get that milk out." And she goes, "Today is today. If we use half formula, half breastfeeding, that's a win. If we use just breastfeeding, that's even better. But we're going to get there." And so she taught me to take it day by day, which is something that I teach all the time to my moms. Forget your goals. Like looking 6 months down the road, if you're formula feeding right now, you're going to be hard on yourself. But if you could do 1 less ounce today or, meet any sort of goal, your baby's doing great and you're working hard for her.
Were her words able to help you relax and let go of whatever your stringent goals were for yourself?
Took some time. It wasn't a little switch that kind of flipped for me. I mull things. I have to decide over some time for myself to let it go. But it did. It really did give me that freedom to be like, okay, I've got the permission from an expert that says, this is okay right now. Let's just keep working on it. And so I felt that really was helpful for me mentally at that moment to just kind of take a break and take a breather and say, it's okay. It's okay. We're working on it.
Yeah, and what I love about that is because even though you say it wasn't a switch, it was planting the seed and it was start of it. Mm-hmm. And what I find with most moms is it then allows them to then concentrate on really just today, because we spend so much time thinking about, I'm giving formula now. 6 months from now, the brain just goes haywire, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we start thinking way, way forward. But when someone tells us, this is just for today, and tomorrow, it may be a little bit different. You may be doing more breastfeeding. You may be giving more of your baby's milk. we don't know, but this is just for today. It allows moms to relax and just concentrate on the present, which is extremely valuable, because when we're so much in thinking about the future, it's like we're thinking about the future, but yet we're really stuck in the present.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And then it becomes way too overwhelming. And I feel like moms would just kind of shut down. And that's where I was at too. It's like you just don't want to think of that. So you're just not going to kind of not give up, but you just are just like, okay, I'm done. Like maybe I should just call it quits, or, just let it be.
Yeah. Now, how hard was it for you to make that call to the lactation consultant?
I think I actually had my husband make it. I don't think I did. It took a while. And then she was kind of brutal with me, but I feel like, I don't know if that was my perception, but she goes, well, what took you so long? Why didn't you call me sooner? And I remember coming to the house, knocking on the door and just walking in and just walked. She didn't even say hi. She just walked into my house, walked by me, washed her hands and came back, and then just squeezed my breast. And I was like, so Courage, what are you doing? She's like, oh, honey, you're too full right now. And then she just got down to business to just kind of help us. And then as we were going, she started chit-chatting. But I was like, okay, good to know. Don't do that.
We all have our own personalities. I'm thrilled to hear that she came, and I'm thrilled to hear that she was really helpful. Not so thrilled to hear about her initial approach. So we could all learn, like you said, good to know when it's my turn, I'm not going to do that. But yeah. But
then I also wonder, it's like, well, what did I filter out? I'm sure she introduced herself. I'm sure she did all these other things, but maybe that was just kind of the impression that I'm remembering and not necessarily the actual events.
I also think that we're wired. If we weren't doing it before, we've had such a difficult experience. Now we're wired to protect ourselves. So it's the shield that moms put around themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think any little thing that I might do or we might do when we're visiting a mom can be like exacerbated to the nth degree. She picked my baby up. She turned and well, no, I didn't really do that. I know some people have, but I didn't really do that. We are, like when someone does one or two things wrong, then everything they do, we just feel like is wrong. Mm-hmm. So you're right. So there's some filters too. But in any event, it is a good thing to remind all of us we can still get the work done, but we can be emotionally more still and more gentle with mom.
Right.
So your husband made the call and she came. And after the first visit, what did you feel shifted for you as far as the actual pumping, feeding, breastfeeding your baby?
It got more complicated. However, I say that with a caveat. It actually got easier because we found Hayden's soothe. So she didn't like pacifiers. She didn't like to lay down. We found the vacuum cleaner. The lactation consultant was like, okay, what can we access in your house? And so the vacuum cleaner became our friend. I'm sure my neighbors thought that we were cleaning nonstop, but the vacuum cleaner was enough of a white noise to calm her down. And so then we were able to focus on latching and getting her to calm down at the breast. But we did introduce, instead of the syringes, we introduced the tubing. And so then I should have had that picture for you so that I could have given it to you.
Were you using a tubing with the bottle, or did you use the supplemental nursing system?
We used the supplemental nursing system, and I would sit and we'd turn the vacuum cleaner on, lay Hayden down, and then my husband would be next to me regulating how fast the flow was to the milk. And then as she would nurse, we'd turn the vacuum cleaner off. She would scream, we'd turn it back on. She'd nurse some more. And it was a challenge.
I mean, we could laugh about it now, but I'm sitting here thinking, because I know, different things that happened to me, that one of the things I had to work hard was to not allow the thoughts of, this is not the way I thought things were going to go. Like every time I started to think that, I had to mentally give myself another line or two, tagline to say, because that kind of held me back too, because whatever is happening, and I'm sure you weren't thinking about vacuum cleaner, SNS, laying down, vacuum cleaner screaming, vacuum cleaner screaming. It's so different than anything that we think that, when we give birth and breastfeeding, it's all, beautiful and lovely and soft music and joy, right?
Right. And you see all these videos of mom's nursing and everybody's happy. And, you need to love your baby. You'll love your baby right as you give birth. And I was like, I did for about 30 minutes until she wouldn't stop crying. I love her to death. But in those moments, you're like, what? What just happened?
What we're doing is we're being honest here, and we know that I can also interview moms who the baby latched on right away, and maybe it was a little weird for them because it's nothing they've done before, and there are a little bit of struggles and challenges, but by and large, it was fairly easy for them, and they fell in love with their baby, and there was never even one little iota of resentment or anger or why isn't this going? And so we know it goes that way, right? And because we've worked with enough women that it does. But really what we're talking about is your experience, and you're saying, oh no, this was definitely not. So tell me, you got past the engorgement, right? And so tell me what happened that you were able to get Hayden to the breast without the SNS.
I didn't even leave out the best part. That SNS was inside a nipple shield. And then that was taped onto me. So then I became allergic to the tape. So now I had
a rash,
sores and rash from the tape, plus doing that. So the lactation consultant actually suggested rebirthing her. And I remember very clearly looking at her and going, I think you're crazy. No, I'm not going back.
I'm not into all that woo-woo stuff, right?
No, but I thought of it really literally. Like, no, I'm not going back to the hospital. No. And she goes, no, honey, it's okay.
Well, the other thing that's we have to realize is like when you said that, like, I know what rebirthing is. So sometimes I forget what I know, what the new mother doesn't know. And that was like a classic example.
So it is. It's like, wow, I learned so much from her about my practice today that I still kind of was like, wow, you're teaching me. And I didn't even know you were teaching me while I was doing it. But I did. I thought, you know what, at this point, I've got nothing to lose. What could possibly go wrong? That I have a great time with my kiddo in the tub, or it's going to work. And I remember it actually working. And we sat there and sobbed. Well, I sobbed. She didn't cry. She was very excited. I cried for a long time, and my husband cried, and we were all super, super excited that time came to an end, that we didn't have to make it so complicated, so technical, and we could just enjoy her.
Give me a little snippet about what rebirthing is for people who may not know what it is, who are thinking you had to go back to the hospital.
So how it was explained to me is you draw a nice warm tub, and then you'll climb in and you invite your baby in and swim the baby around a little bit. She encouraged me it was September, so I didn't need the heater on in the bathroom, but even in the winter, she said, don't put the heater on, but pull the baby out of the water and then kind of simulate a birth and just put her back onto your chest in between your breasts and just let her be and see what she does. And it kind of reset her primal instincts of going back to the breasts and going, hey, I need to be there to eat and to do all these things. And she did. I remember the bounce, latch, and going, oh, it totally worked. This is amazing. And so I don't know if I explained it correctly.
Yeah, was she less than a couple of weeks old at that point?
She was actually 3 months old.
That's why I wanted to make that clarification, because I'm thinking you as a C-section mom in the tub, I don't think that would work too well. So you did the rebirthing at 3 months, but it was amazing.
Yeah, it was life-changing for it. It still gives me goosebumps as I'm talking about it, because it was such a visceral, emotional moment for both of us. And I tell moms, I was like, don't give up. You've got it took me 3 months to get to a point to exclusively breastfeed, and we took off. And I remember having a client who never nursed her baby because he wouldn't latch, and she was pumping, and she leaned over him while he was in the car seat when she was climbing out of the shower, and the baby just latched on and away they went. And he was 11 months old, and mom was blown away. So
love that story.
We could never say never is what I tell moms. Like, that's a big word. That's a strong word. So,
I actually, I love different ways of saying things. One of the things that I say is that if you totally stop trying and make your breast, you close up shop, so to speak, then we'll never know what could have happened.
Right.
What a fun time I had with Christine. Thank you so much, Christine, for being with us today. There is lots more next week. when we get to talk about rebirthing, the notion of breastfeeding goals, and how it sometimes plays into mother's guilt. She shares with us that both her babies were tongue-tied, and she chose to not have the revision procedure done, instead taking a different route that worked for her. I really enjoyed having Christine today. We talked for a very long time, so I have separated the show into 2 parts. And so the next interview will be part 2 of Christine's show. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Until the next show, bye-bye.